Welcome to the place where love is not just spoken but felt, deep, raw, and real. Here, every story peels back the layers of fear, vulnerability, and passion to reveal what true connection really means. This isn't about fairy tales or perfect endings. It's about those quiet, powerful moments when souls recognize each other beyond the surface, when vulnerability becomes the foundation of trust, and when passion breaks down walls only to rebuild hearts stronger than ever. This is where intimacy is more than physical. It's a sacred merging of two spirits seeking refuge and home. If you crave stories that shake you to your core and remind you that love, in all its messy beauty, can heal and transform, you're in the right place. Get ready to feel, to learn, and to open your heart like never before. There was a moment so quiet it felt like the world held its breath, a moment that no one else could see. But that changed everything in an instant. It wasn't about the way he looked, though there was no denying he was captivating. It wasn't about the smile or the casual brush of a hand. It was something deeper, something raw, a force that stirred in the soul like a sudden flame rising from cold ashes. Two people standing in a crowded room, yet completely alone in the connection that sparked between them. That silence, that invisible thread, was heavier than any word spoken, stronger than any glance. It was recognition, a knowing that went beyond skin and bone, beyond the simple mechanics of attraction. In that instant, time slowed, not because there was an epic moment planned, but because everything else faded into insignificance. The air around them thickened with unspoken truths. It was the kind of stillness where even breathing seemed like a betrayal of the gravity between those two hearts. No rehearsed lines, no forced smiles, only the raw, trembling reality of two souls who had wandered through separate storms, finally reaching the same shore. The pull wasn't loud or brash. It wasn't fireworks or shouting. It was the soft, relentless tide that pulls you out to sea, gentle but unstoppable, tender but all-consuming. The eyes met, but it was more than sight. It was an opening, a glimpse into the depths where pain, hope, fear, and longing lived side by side. There was no need to hide the broken places. The cracks in the armor were visible, yet somehow beautiful. In that look was the silent promise that whatever stories had shaped them, whatever scars had been worn, none of it mattered anymore. What mattered was the raw truth laid bare between them. It was vulnerability without shame, a nakedness of spirit that didn't ask for fixing or judging, only for recognition and acceptance. The world around them continued to buzz with noise and movement, but the space they occupied was different, sacred. That moment was a secret whispered in a crowded room, a stolen breath shared without sound. It was the kind of connection that didn't rush, didn't demand explanation or clarity. It simply was. It settled into the bones and the heart like a quiet truth, impossible to ignore or undo. The tension between them was not electric but deeply human, a slow burn of understanding that reached further than desire. It was clear that this wasn't just about physical attraction. That would be too simple, too fleeting. It was about something that felt as ancient as the stars, a meeting of halves that had been wandering incomplete. Each carried a weight of loneliness, a past of silent battles fought in solitude, and the yearning to be seen without pretense. In this moment, that yearning found its answer, not in promises or plans, but in the simple, undeniable fact of being known. There was no rush to touch, no desperation to close the distance. Every second stretched, filled with the tension of waiting and the comfort of presence. It was the kind of waiting that doesn't feel like waiting at all, but like breathing in harmony for the first time. The heart didn't race with panic or excitement, it settled into a steady rhythm, the rhythm of recognition. Two souls acknowledging each other's existence, not with loud declarations, but with a quiet acceptance that spoke louder than words ever could. Even without a single word exchanged, the vulnerability was shared openly, without shame. It was the kind of openness that comes only when the walls have been worn down by time and pain, when masks have fallen and there's nothing left to hide. It was the moment when the past lost its power to isolate, and two broken pieces fit together with a strange, tender certainty. The sense of safety was overwhelming, not because the world had changed, but because in this moment it didn't need to. It was also terrifying, because deep connection means risking everything, risking being seen and rejected, risking the raw exposure of one's soul. But that risk wasn't met with fear. Instead, it was met with a quiet courage, the kind that only grows from having loved and lost, from having been hurt and still choosing to open the heart again. It was the courage to surrender, not to anyone, but to the moment itself, to the truth that sometimes love isn't a choice but a force that sweeps you up whether you're ready or not. There was no need to explain the feeling or analyze it. It simply settled deep inside, planting a seed that would grow into something fierce and unyielding. The pull between two souls is like gravity, invisible but undeniable. It changes trajectories, alters paths, and leaves no room for pretending it's anything less than profound. That night, when the eyes met and the silence spoke volumes, it was clear that something rare and sacred had begun, something that would not be measured by time or distance, but by the depth of feeling that would only grow stronger. No one else in that room could have understood. To the outside world, it might have seemed like nothing more than a glance, a casual meeting. But inside, where hearts beat with the weight of past pain and hope, it was the start of everything. The first chapter of a story that would be written not just with words, but with the language of souls entwined, with the quiet intimacy of two people who finally saw each other for who they truly were. That moment, so small and yet so vast, was a turning point. It was the night when everything changed, not because of grand gestures or dramatic confessions, but because of the simple, profound truth that two souls had collided and found a home in one another. That night marked the beginning of a journey deeper than either could have imagined, a journey of trust, vulnerability, and love that reaches far beyond the surface. And in the end, all that mattered was that silent, unspoken understanding, the recognition that true connection is the rarest and most beautiful kind of love there is. There is a kind of connection that doesn't begin with words, but with the trembling of a heart laid bare, exposed in the quiet moments no one else sees. It's the kind of connection that only forms when the masks fall off and the walls crumble, revealing the fragile pieces underneath, the fears held tightly, the wounds no one talks about, the shadows carried from yesterday's pain. It's in that trembling openness where real intimacy is born, not the kind you find in fleeting encounters or easy smiles, but something far deeper, rawer, and fiercely vulnerable. It's terrifying to let someone see the parts that scare you the most, to show the fractures, the scars etched by past betrayals and losses, the doubts that whisper in the silence when the world seems too loud. But it's also the only way to truly be known. In that exposure, trust begins to weave itself silently between two souls. It's a fragile thread at first, barely visible, but stronger than steel. Every glance becomes sacred, every touch a lifeline, because both are soaked in the courage it takes to stay open when the heart is raw and aching. There's no pretense in these moments, no performance or facade. The realness cuts through all the noise, the social expectations, the fear of rejection, the urge to protect the heart by hiding behind walls. Instead, there is an unspoken agreement to meet each other exactly where they are, scars and all. It's not about fixing or changing. It's about holding space for each other's pain, trembling together in the face of uncertainty, and finding strength in that shared vulnerability. Every touch carries weight, not just physical, but emotional. It is a silent promise that says, I see you, I accept you, I am here. The hands that linger a little longer, the brush of a cheek, the quiet breath shared in the dark, they become the language of trust, a language learned only by those willing to risk everything for connection. In that space, fear loses its power because the heart is held gently, without judgment, without demand. This kind of intimacy isn't built overnight. It grows slowly, nurtured by countless moments where honesty wins over fear, where secrets no longer need to be hidden, where tears are met with tenderness, not shame. It's the willingness to walk through the storms together, the moments when vulnerability feels like a chasm too wide to cross, yet somehow, step by trembling step, it becomes the bridge to something more real than either had ever known. And even when doubt creeps in, when the past threatens to pull back into old patterns, the connection holds, because it's not built on perfection or ease, but on the messy, unpredictable reality of two souls choosing each other every day despite the scars they carry. The tenderness in that choice is fierce and unbreakable. It's in the shared glances after a confession, the silent squeezing of hands when words fail, the warmth that spreads through the body simply from knowing someone is there, steadfast and true. In the quiet of those moments, it becomes clear that vulnerability is not weakness. It's the most powerful act of courage there is, to lay open the heart and say, this is me, flawed and fractured, but willing to be seen. And to be met not with rejection or fear, but with arms that hold tight and eyes that say, you are safe here. That safety births a kind of love that is rare and breathtaking, love that is patient with the wounds, tender with the fears, and relentless in its devotion. It's love that sees beyond the surface, beyond the past mistakes, and finds beauty in the raw honesty of two souls intertwining. It's love that doesn't ask for perfection, but celebrates the imperfect journey toward healing and trust. In that sacred space of vulnerability, every touch becomes a healing balm, every glance a beacon of hope. It is here, in this trembling openness, that love finds its truest expression, beyond words, beyond appearances, beyond fear. It is the foundation upon which everything real and lasting is built, and in the end, this is what matters most, that rare moment when two hearts choose to be seen fully, to be loved fiercely, and to hold each other gently in the brokenness. There's a fire that doesn't warm gently, but roars with a fierce intensity that can both scorch and heal. It's the kind of love that doesn't tiptoe or play safe. It crashes through the walls built over years of pain and silence, tearing down the carefully constructed barriers meant to protect a fragile heart. It's messy and chaotic, full of contradictions, breaking and mending, shattering and rebuilding, all at once. This is a love that demands everything, shaking the core so violently that what's left behind is raw and open, vulnerable and true. At first, it feels like a reckoning, the kind that unsettles the ground beneath the feet, making the familiar world tilt and spin. There's no preparation for the way this love strips away the masks worn for so long, exposing wounds thought long buried. It doesn't ask permission. It simply sweeps in, shaking loose the dust of old fears and doubts. The past, with all its scars and ghosts, rises to the surface, demanding to be faced instead of ignored. And though it hurts, there's a strange relief in that, because to finally see the wounds means they can begin to heal. The passion that burns in this kind of love is not quiet or tame. It's relentless, a force that pulls at every part of the soul, demanding truth and presence. It's the kind of passion that wakes the heart from numbness, breaking through the fog of loneliness and regret. There are moments when it feels like being caught in a storm, wild, unpredictable, sometimes frightening, when the heart races not just with desire, but with the fear of losing itself in the intensity. Yet in the chaos, there is a strange beauty. The breaking down of walls becomes a sacred act. Each shattered piece reveals something real beneath, raw edges of longing, the desperate hope for connection, the aching need to be seen and held despite all imperfections. And as the old defenses crumble, something new begins to take shape. It's fragile at first, a tentative rebuilding of trust and hope, but it grows stronger with every shared tear, every honest confession, every moment of surrender. This kind of love is not without pain. It forces the meeting of shadows long ignored, the fears of abandonment, the wounds left by past betrayals, the silence that once felt like safety but was really isolation. It's in those moments of pain that healing begins, because love that truly shakes the foundation is love that refuses to let brokenness remain unspoken. It speaks through trembling hands, through whispered words in the quiet dark, through the courage to face the past together rather than alone. And with that courage comes transformation. The passion that once threatened to consume now becomes the flame that purifies. It burns away the old stories of unworthiness and fear, lighting the path to a new way of being, one where two broken hearts don't just survive, but begin to truly live again. They learn that love isn't about perfection or safety, but about the willingness to be vulnerable and brave in the face of uncertainty, in the midst of the messiness, the intensity, the breaking and rebuilding. There is a profound tenderness. It is found in the soft touches that follow the storm, in the quiet moments where presence is all that's needed. It is the gentle holding of hands after a fight, the shared laughter that breaks through tears, the knowing look that says, "I'm here," even when it's hard. This tenderness is the thread that stitches together the broken pieces, weaving a tapestry of hope and resilience. This kind of love doesn't come with guarantees. It doesn't promise smooth sailing or easy days. Instead, it offers something far more valuable, the truth of connection that runs deeper than any fear or pain. It is the kind of love that asks for everything and gives everything in return. It shakes the soul awake, breaks the heart open, and in that breaking, it makes space for something whole and real to grow. And when the storm finally settles, what remains is not just a story of survival, but a story of rebirth. Two souls, once fractured and weary, now intertwined in a bond forged by fire and tempered by grace. It's the kind of love that carries the scars proudly, knowing they are marks of a journey taken together, a journey that changed everything. In the end, it's this passion, the breaking and the healing, that teaches what it means to truly love and be loved back. There are moments when the world seems to disappear, when time folds in on itself, and nothing exists outside the quiet space between two people. It's not just about the physical closeness, the brush of skin, or the heat that rises. It's something far deeper. It's a meeting of souls, a merging that happens silently, without words, but with a power so profound it shakes the very core. This is not desire in its simplest form. It's the language of two spirits finally finding refuge in each other, wrapped in a fire that burns far beyond the surface. When two souls collide in such a way, it's as if the entire journey of loneliness, the wandering through darkness and longing, finds its end. It's the moment when all the searching, all the restless nights filled with silent questions, is answered not with explanations, but with presence. There's an intimacy that isn't spoken aloud. It's felt in the stillness, in the way breaths synchronize and hands learn the contours of a heart, as if mapping sacred ground. The physical becomes a sacred vessel for something infinitely larger, a connection that whispers, "You are home." It's a dance between two broken, wandering souls who have carried wounds, doubts, and fears like shadows in the night. But in this merging, those shadows don't disappear. they soften and become part of a new whole. There is a tenderness in the way that vulnerability is held, the way unspoken fears are met not with judgment, but with quiet understanding. It is the kind of closeness where silence is not awkward but comforting, where every touch is a promise of acceptance and every glance a vow of belonging. The fire that wraps around them is not a blaze of urgency, but a steady, glowing warmth that seeps deep into the bones. It's the kind of fire that doesn't consume but sustains, that doesn't demand but offers shelter. It is the refuge two spirits seek when the world feels cold and unyielding. And in that refuge, something remarkable happens. The boundaries between two separate lives begin to blur, until it feels like one heart is beating inside two bodies. This merging is not about losing oneself, but about becoming whole together. It's about the sacred exchange where two spirits speak without words, communicate without sound. It's in the lingering touch, the quiet sighs, the slow unfolding of trust that bridges the gap between loneliness and belonging. It's the knowing glance after a shared breath, the small movements that say, "I see you, truly see you, in all your imperfect beauty." There's a profound humility in this kind of intimacy. It requires surrender, not of weakness, but of courage, to open fully, to offer the deepest parts of oneself, even the broken parts, takes a bravery born from the hardest lessons of the past. It's a willingness to be vulnerable in a world that often rewards armor and distance. And yet, when two souls find each other in this way, it becomes clear that vulnerability is the truest form of strength. It's not always easy or clean. The merging of two spirits carries the echoes of past pain and the weight of future uncertainties. There are moments of doubt, moments when the old fears rise up to remind them of past heartbreaks. But in those moments, the fire burns even brighter. It's the fire of resilience, of hope forged in the quiet certainty that this connection is more than fleeting desire. It is sanctuary. In the stillness after, when the world slowly creeps back in, there is a lasting imprint left on the soul. The memory of being truly seen and held in a way that defies explanation. It is the kind of imprint that lingers in the breath, in the heartbeat, in the quiet corners of the mind long after the physical closeness has faded. It is a reminder that somewhere deep inside there is a home to return to, a home built not from walls or promises, but from the merging of two wandering spirits. That night when everything fell away and two souls found refuge in each other was not the end of a story but the beginning of a new journey, a journey marked not by perfection or certainty, but by a profound trust in the power of connection. A journey where love is spoken in the language of touch, breath, and silence, a language understood only by those who have dared to merge, not just physically, but spiritually. And in that merging, a fire burns that no storm can extinguish. Thank you for sharing this journey into the deepest parts of love and connection. If these stories touched your heart or made you see love in a new light, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more honest, powerful stories that dive beneath the surface. Hit the bell so you never miss a moment of truth and passion. Remember, real love is messy, fierce, and healing. And here, you'll always find a place to feel it fully. Until next time, keep your heart open and your spirit brave.